Okay, my friends, I did a video the other day that was on these walls down in Peru and Bolivia and all down in that area, and how they actually constructed them. What did they use? What was the materials? Why did they fit together so perfectly? What's the evidence? And how did these things get here? You know, there was equipment. They had machines. Now, when I did the video the other day, I put it up and it was all out of order. My files got corrupted somehow and it was a mess, and I'm sure it was very confusing. I'm putting them back in order and I hope it will make sense. All right, but it's going to be a lot of the same stuff, but hopefully it's going to be in an order where it's a progressive, something that will make sense to you. That's my hope. Okay, my friends, as I said, and I did as I said I would, I made a very short video about the giant hair follicle so that it can be possibly a conversation starter, maybe an argument starter, I don't know. But we additionally are going to do this, and I'm going to get into these walls and all of this. How did they make these? How was this done? What are these bumps all about? And people have been making all kinds of claims, and I have my claims to make, so my claims should be heard as well as everybody else's. And they did some fabulous work. You see that? That's just amazing. Very, very, very interesting work. And you see the lichen growing on there, the moss really is growing into these things here and there, and these bumps, we're going to talk about this and what they used as building material. How did they do this? How did they make these seams so perfectly? And they're just all oddball looking seams. How did they do that? Well, I think I can explain it to some degree, and it's a little different than most people think. It appears that they had some kind of equipment here when they did this, and they must have removed the stuff because you can't find it anymore. You'd think you'd find some of this stuff laying around, but I do see the evidence that indicates it was here. And where it is now, je ne sais pas, I do not know. Okay, in the last video I went through this hair root ball, and this is what I saw. Now, if anybody has any questions about it, I have the answers. I can provide the answers. This is the top of the root ball, as I showed you before. I'm just going to run through these pictures real quick. This is the bottom where the vein and artery is. This is the side where the erector pili muscle attaches, and there's the vein and artery that services the muscle, and it's foamed up with the catalase test. So it's a real thing. There's no question about it, and it's exactly identical to what comes up here. All these little wrinkly things around where the hair comes up the top. Same thing. Same. See? And you know, I've talked to people that they understand this, and there's no question. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Let's put it that way. Now, as I said before, I would go through these walls now because I was talking. Well, the 2-minute one was just a conversation starter showing the hair follicle. Now, the other one I did was a very long one about Myron Cook and his work, and showing that the tendon balls that he was showing are tendon balls. They're not some kind of concretions. Now, in the same point, I showed where these little straps coming out of the tendon attached to those balls. We're going to go through all of that right now, and I'm going to show you some things that are down in Bolivia and Peru, all that area. They're stunning, and they're undeniable. All right, this is a little gruesome, but it is rope-like tendon. There's that, and then there's aponeurosis tendon. Let's look at the aponeurosis tendon first, which is the flat tendon that they use to make those walls with the bumps. All right, this is the aponeurosis tendon. Remember this, the linea alba, which is straight down the center. It splits you in half, basically. This is the kind of tendon that was the best stuff. And you don't see it here, but on every one of these straps, there's a little tiny ball that goes down below, and they're all over there, and so the straps all over. It's just, they're way too small to see. I'll show you in a microscope. All right, here's the deal. This is the tendon they wanted to use. This is the best stuff. And it's that white aponeurosis tendon I just showed you. If you need to, go back and look at it. These are the straps that I was talking about. You can't see them. All you saw was that white flat stuff. You're never going to see this. It goes through these little tiny holes. This is like electron microscope. These little tiny balls were on these wires, these little straps, and they anchored in here. What that allowed you to do was the anchor held this strap, so it couldn't go, it could go this way up to a certain point, and go this way to a certain point, but that's it. The anchor held it so that it just couldn't go anywhere it wanted, but this ball ripped out of here because the guy did too much exercise or whatever he did. It ripped that ball out from there. That's considered a sports injury, and it'd be painful. Now, what they did was they cut these flat pieces, and they just snapped off these little wires. All right, these are the little straps that come down to the balls, and they just were here sitting here. And they snapped them right off, and I basically proved that because I can show you the test wall that they used to see how to deal with these little bumps or how to deal with flat ones. And I think they were also trying to look how this weathered against the rope like, because the other one didn't have any bumps. Let me show you the test wall. Okay, I'm pretty sure I showed you this, where the straps come over and the ball anchors in and the ball is ripped out. Now, where they did this and using this, they were cutting these slabs, right, like this primarily, where the little tab came out. So they're taking pieces in between where they tagged in, but there's going to be bang, 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 bang right in a row. And when they took them, they were right next to each other when they cut these slabs. And the balls, they stayed away from the balls because they're going to get in the way of things. So they might have cut way up to here, who knows. But they wouldn't bother with this spot here. I would say then they cut the next one up here. So this chunk here was just probably thrown away. That's what I would do. But you'd break them here, you break it here, you break it here, and then you end up with a nice big flat slab. I mean, they were just as flat as could be, and very nice to work with. And they were soft at the time. It appears to me they had to be soft at the time. Okay, the only thing I can take away from this is this was a test wall, testing how to handle the different tendons. Now, the reason I think that is because I believe this and this style right here is the straight up and down tendon. What they did between the difference between the two, I don't know. This is the aponeurosis tendon. These are the rope-like ones that have the straps running straight up and down. You see how they're broken here like that, and they look like they're running straight up and down. This is the aponeurosis, which comes down and locks with the balls. They just broke off these. That's all they did, was just break those off. And this one here, same thing. However, what they did with this one is they left this piece, which attaches right up to there, which is it sort of moves with this. They left these with it and scraped around all of it. And this one, they left these around it, and I guess they just left everything all the way back to here. Because this will be, that's all natural. This allows the thing to stretch a certain amount. That's what these little blocks are here. But these are the grabbers. Now, this one here looks like they tried something with a tendon coming off of a bone or something to see what would happen with that. All I can tell you is there's no reason I can see possible reason for this wall other than to see how did this one weather this one, this one, this one, and this one. Well, what did they do? Because I can tell you right now, that is right there, that is one of those little hooks that goes over into a ball, and of course they're gigantic. And the one in Arches National Park is one of these. There's one that's still complete, and then there's one that's broken off and shows just like that. Let me show you that. Now, all I can tell you is this looks to me like they tested. Why would they do this? Think about why would they do this? This has no purpose whatsoever. This one, I think, is the rope-like tendon that has the straight up and down tendons. This is that aponeurosis, and these are the little straps that they broke off. That one you can still see inside of it, and we'll get up closer and look at it in a minute. this is the same as this, only they didn't shave off around here. They left these little pieces, and that's normal. That's exactly what they look like. It's all that way. There is, the thing can move, and it's all like these little blocks can slide among themselves. Otherwise you couldn't move. So you have to have a lot of intricacy between little sliding parts here. Now this one here and this one here look like basically similar. Now this, I don't know what's going on with this one. But there's a big chunk sticking out there. But it looks, and then this one here, I'm not sure. This one looks like similar to these. But it looks to me like they were testing. And this is the aponeurosis, and this is the I think the rope-like. All right, this is Utah Arches National Park. There's one of those straps, and there's the ball. In this case, all the tendinous or whatever this was locked into is gone. Bone or whatever it was. And the tendon is gone too. All that's left is the ball and the strap. Now this one, the strap broke. Normally they would break. Whoops. They're certainly not strong like the ball is. The ball is very, very strong. There's one here, there's one here, there's one here. This one here broke right off up at the top. You see there's the tendon. Remember the little hole in the middle? That's basically one of these tendon bumps. That's what the tendon bumps are, these things here. Now, and they just removed this, and at that point they had a slab of tendon would be right up here, and that would have been gone through, and the ball would have been low into some substrate. So I don't know what kind of chemistry this was in. Probably acids, maybe salts. Not salts, I don't think. It had to be some kind of acids, I would think, because salts make things preserve well, fleshy things, but acids wear into them, and salt, well, I don't know. It could have been anything. But anyway, that is where that's one of those pinchy bundles that is on a slab, and the slab would have been right under it, and that's a pinchy bundle would have been up, and they would have pinched it. But you see the size of these things? Look at the size of it. And that ball comes right down like this. And I showed you, I know I showed you a couple times, but here it is again. That's the exact same thing. And then break them right up here is what I showed you coming out of the side of the cliff coming down, and the other one was still complete. One of them was still complete down to the ball, and all that stuff was washed away basically. And the tendon was washed away. So all we could see was the ball still down here and the strap coming up to a cliff, and that one there was broken right off. So that's what we saw at Arches. One more time, don't forget, there's the one coming all the way down to the ball. This is one that's broken off up at the top, just so there's no confusion. That one's coming all the way down to the ball. This one is broken off at the top. But they're side by side, just like they would be in a creature's body. Now, whether the ball was here or came down to here, I don't know, but they're all over the place. So this was a aponeurosis tendon at one time. All right, so let's finish up with the aponeurosis. Again, this is what it is. And this is what it is when it's made very nicely and put up on these walls. Now, how did they cut these things? How did they cut these little chunks? And how did they move them down there? Because they were wet, they were moist. At least they were moist like putty. When they put them up here, they just thump, and they just moved them in a little bit and snugged them up and pushed them in. And these are the little bumps, and they just pinched them off so that you don't see the hole in it. But the test wall, you could see it. And some of the other walls too. Well, actually the test wall, I think, is about the only place I really see it easily. You see it? And you saw the same thing at Arches. That's exactly the same thing. So that's the only place I think I see it. And maybe they just didn't pinch it off. But you know what? Hold on a second. I think maybe they pinched off some and didn't pinch off others. Maybe this is a pinch off. This is not pinched. These two, I don't know. Maybe that's pinched off. Maybe they just want to see between that and that. I don't know. I do not know. But it looked to me, I can't see any other reason for a wall like that. There's just no reason whatsoever. Here's some more really excellently done. And at this point, they knew how to finish them, see, so that you don't see the hole going in them. But the bump is still going to be there. They really couldn't do much about that. Because if you went, they must have sort of molded it over and somehow let it fuse. Because I don't see any, you don't see the strap coming out of those. Now, these walls, again, were made with the aponeurosis tendon. Every now and then they screwed up and they got some meat in with it, because you don't want the meat with the tendon. And that, when I say that, here's what happens. In the meat and tendon situation you have here, all right, so you have your aponeurosis, your rope tendon. Now, that's going to meet up with some meat. What you want to do is anchor your machine into the meat and cut the tendon. And that's what they did. Or the meat would be over here and they'd anchor it in here and cut the tendon slabs off of here, one way or the other. And I can show you that actually happening. All right, this right here is tendon. And it comes down to a thing that is just as gluey as hell. You see, this stuff is very, very gluey. And then it goes into the muscle, and the muscle is weak compared to this stuff. This stuff is gnarly as hell, and the tendon as well. And this is what it looks like when it preserved in a certain manner. And I can't tell you exactly why, but there was a lot of transition metals, and you can obviously see the abrupt transition. Now, what is an abrupt transition? It's just like that. You see that right there? This is selenite. All right, that's an abrupt transition. This colored stuff right here, this is glue. This is basically the gluey substance right here that glues the tendon to the muscle. All right, and that's because I'm going to show you the machine that they use. So they want to be in the muscle area, which is really basically they want to be up in this area here, cutting down into these slabs. All right, and you're going to see this kind of a look. Although this is turned into selenite, but if this stayed red, muscly looking stuff, instead of this being red, this would be white looking, and all the rest would be red. It would just be the reverse of what you're seeing here, and that's what you're going to see where they have their equipment right here. You see this? So this right here is basically going to be like this, or basically like this. They're right up in here with this machine, and they're going to be cutting these slabs down here, which is the tendon. So up here was the muscle, and they got the machine anchored right into this mineralized stuff. Like I say, this is the reverse image of what we're seeing here. This has got the red and the white. This has got the white and the red. We'll just make the white red and make this white. That's what you're seeing here. So they anchored it in right here, and then cut these tendons down, because those are the slabs you want. You know, this is terrible stuff. This is no good. And I'll show you what happened when they screwed up. All right, so don't forget, this is where they're cutting. They're cutting these slabs, and they're trying to get only the tendon. Well, they screwed up here, and that they still used it. Not only they used only the good stuff, but this, they must have been in a rush. You see this? That's this here highlighted. That's bone. That's out of the bone part. The tendon or the muscle, whatever they used right here, right up alongside of the bone, they got a piece of the bone. You see it, the red and all this stuff. That's, I believe, the bone. And that's going to rot away, and that foundation is going to give out. I guess they figured they had enough support here to keep it. But look at this one. Look at this one they used up here. That's almost like just a piece of rotted meat. This is what they want. At least this must be the really bad end of town, and they just wanted to throw whatever they could up there. For whatever these are apparently some kind of fortifications. And they appear to be step after step after step of fortifications. Now, that's the only thing I can think of why they would do this. I mean, they're all over the place down there. And they are big, and they are everywhere. And like I say, they just stacked up over here, over here, over here, all the way up the hill. Why they do that? Now I showed you this, and I say this was the meat part, and then this is the tendon part. And then let me find the other good shots. All right, this is a whole different situation. This is the rope style tendon. You see it coming down here? And they were cutting slabs, same thing. Look at how precise. And they were moving them down to make these walls. Again, for what? I have no idea. It may even have something to do with rains and flooding and making like a pathway between the flooded zones. I have no idea. At this point in time, it was altogether different. But you can see the lichen and see the mossy looking stuff. The lichen likes black blood, the vein blood, and the red and green moss and lichen like the red blood. And that's what, this is it right here. Now, let's take a look at what this is actually made of. Because again, I'm telling you right now, this is a tendon, a rope-like tendon. I'll show you, because I can pretty much prove that. All right, there's a rope-like tendon. This happens to be Achilles' heel. And these are the best rope-like tendons. And they were cutting slabs off of this. And it was just absolutely ginormous, as you saw a second ago. Remember, that's the tendon. This is the tendon here. That's one of those strands of tendon fibers coming down from the Achilles. I think this is probably an Achilles, but I don't know. It could be another one. Because look, this is what they're all made of, the same stuff. That's the tendon like that, the rope-like tendon. So where it was in the creature's body, I don't know, but I can tell you it's a tendon. Now I'll show you the kids sliding on it. You see that? That's up in Iceland. Now this is the tendon anthesis. And this is, it's got to be really close to some kind of a organ to be given off this color, which is some kind of enzyme is causing that. This is blood running off, and these are the tendon fibrils, and there would have been blood all the way this whole area. Now, this is where the tendons normally glue in, and I'm going to show you some glue that it's just stunningly unbelievable. As I showed you before, the break between here and the glue is just instantaneous. There's no, the separation zone it's called an abrupt transition. It's just zoom. This is the gnarly as hell stuff, and that's the tendon. Now, let me find a serious shot showing that. Hold on. Okay, how about this one? The steps cut off here just like the other ones. That's the rope-like tendon, and they just made all these walls back here. Again, I have no clue why they would do that. They don't make sense to me unless they're for fortifications, and they still really don't make a whole lot of sense in that respect either, although if you were way up at the top and you could have your troops just fall back and fall back and fall back, I suppose that's one strategy. You see that? This is Achilles tendon. I think it's a tendon of some sort, and the kids are sliding on it. I think this is in Peru, maybe Bolivia, I'm not sure. All right, you see that? That's exactly the same thing. These are tendon fibers coming up to that really gluey, gnarly stuff. And then right after that, the muscle starts, and that's just floppy and falls apart and just erodes right away. But the tendon is the tough stuff. Of course, the glue is also just as tough as the tendon. And then the muscle is just the floppy stuff. This is just supposed to give just a little tiny bit. It's just almost like a rubber band. And then after that, your muscle is able to contract. This doesn't contract, it just stretches. And it's always under tension, that's why it's called a tendon. When you cut those, you get a wrinkle zone. I'm going to show you a couple wrinkle zones. Because anytime you cut it, they cut almost flat as a pancake, and then you get this wrinkle zone. You see that? That's from dreamtime.com. And these are the wrinkle zones in a tendon. Can you imagine that? It breaks right at the top, and then they just go zip like this. Normally they're under the stress, and they're just nice and straight, side by side, and they can slide amongst themselves, but they're always under tension. You cut it, and they go boing. And the same thing happened at Devil's Tower, because that is nothing more than a giant tendon as well. And here's what happened at Devil's Tower. You see the wrinkle zone up at the top? Exact same thing. And these are all the tendon fibers. right? And that's the wrinkle zone. And they just break flat as a pancake on the top. There was another one here that shows another type of here it is right here, tire track. See that? That's like a 4-wheel drive tire. You see the width of it coming here? You see those little oddball looking tires that they have that dig in, the big heavy duty tires? That's what it looks like to me. And that had to happen when this thing was moist. All of this happened when they were in a process of drying out, and they were at a stage where they could use them like putty. That's the only thing I can take away from this. There's no other way to see this. If you look at that, there's no question whatsoever something was on there when this was moist and it sunk into there. These were cut, I'm sure, at the same time. There's no reason to not think that. This is in the gluey area between muscly stuff and tendon, and it's just way too much evidence to support what I'm saying. And this is not millions of years in one picture. This is one creature dying, and that is the tendon. Remember I told you how tough the tendon is, and there it is right there. This is all connective tissue. Connective tissue doesn't require any blood or anything hardly to run. And same thing here is connected. That's the central core of the tendon, and it locked into a bone, which was right here. And you could move this and this like that way, but it's still stuck to the bone. So you could, and the muscle was here, and that just erodes, and the bone erodes, because both of those are really very erosive compared to the tendon. The tendon just lasts forever. Tendons are a girl's best friend. A diamond lasts forever, something like that. Now, so that's tendon. And I have one in here in my shop, and I think I had a picture of it up here. Oh, I guess not. But anyway, all of these are, and the tendon balls, I showed the tendon balls, they're all different styles. This is, you know, they have all different balls inside of one ball. And I did this one about Myron Cook's video the other day, where he's showing them, saying how they concreted and all this stuff. He's blocking and deleting all my people that are putting quotes up there. And I'd like you to go there and say, Myron, why don't you take a look at this stuff? All he's going to do is make a fool of himself if he continues on without addressing this. Look at this. Somebody sends me this. They say, how do you explain that? I say, I can explain that very easily. You want to see what it is? Hold on a second. Let me find a Z picture. There it is right there. As it erodes. These are types of different tissue layers. And this is like fatty layers in between these heavier layers. It's very small. This is tiny, tiny, tiny. Look, this is 200 micrometers. And in us, and so that's pretty small. And here's what you're seeing, what I just showed you a minute ago, is this, the same stuff. But it's a little bit bigger. All right, and there's a lot of this stuff around. People just have no clue what they're looking at. Just like Myron said, they have no idea. And he knows everything about it. No, he doesn't. This is what we were just looking at right there. These are the layers in between all that little layery looking stuff. All you can do is just dismiss and say, oh, the guy's just crazy, it just looks like that, it can't be that, it's just, no, yes it can. And my stuff has been DNA tested, and some of it CAT scanned, and some of it DNA tested, and it's all exactly what I said it is. There's nothing that I'm saying that I can't stand behind, and anybody wants to try to disprove me, test my samples. Right, here's some more of this tendon. Look at what they did. Look at this. Why that? Why would they do that? What the hell are they doing? But this is nothing more than that rope tendon. I know it's very hard for the average mind to accept this, but what is. And what isn't. And I'm telling you, all the things that they say isn't. And all the things I say is. I can prove them. They're saying about things that they have no clue what they're saying about, because they can't take into account that these were creatures. Once you just dismiss that they could possibly be creatures, there's no way. You're just walking around in circles, because they are creatures. They are. There's no possible way you can deny it. Which one is, they carved all this stuff into these. So this had to happen after this stuff dried out, is my way of thinking. Most of the things that we know about are after the Great Flood. And the Great Flood was not that long ago. Because all the stuff I have came from the Great Flood too, as far as I'm concerned, and it's all on the face of the earth. And it's exceptionally preserved mud fossils. As you saw, or you have seen over and over and over, I've shown them for 15 years now, 10 years publicly, with all the evidence. All the evidence. So here's some more. You see that? Look at this guy's Jeep down here, or whatever it is. This is nothing more than tendon and muscle. This was with a muscle attached to the tendon. All right, you have what they call abrupt transitions. Let me see if I have my, hold on a second. All right, here's the deal. This is muscle. That's the tendon. See, there's no color to it really. This has got all that pinky looking stuff because it needs a lot of blood. This is the tendon. That's that gluey stuff. Tough, tough, tough as hell. This is the same bone and muscle and stuff, but I have the bone still. Here the bone is over here. It's just out of range. This one here still has the bone, but this is the muscle. You see here? It's just called abrupt transitions. That's the most abrupt between the tendon and the muscle, just where they glue together. All right, so then you go into abrupt transitions, about 3 or 4 of them, as the muscle turns less and less mineralized and more muscly. Okay, well, I believe I've shown you about everything. You've seen the different types of tendon, the aponeurosis versus the rope type. You've seen, well, maybe you didn't see this. This is how tendons come down. They start real big like this, and then they come down into smaller rope bundles, which are part of this, smaller little anthesis, straps. And they just keep getting smaller and smaller. This is just one that's inside of here, and it turns into a bazillion of those, and then every one of these turns into these, and then every one of those turns into these. It's just a never-ending cascade of filaments. And at the very end is the balls, and that's what holds the tendons in position. These are all the fibrils, and at the end you have the balls, just like I showed you here in this tendon mat. If I can find it. I got too many things open at one time. Oh, but I did show you those little tendons they come across and they lock in with the balls. Why I can't find the thing? There it is. Alright, these are the balls, and those are the little straps that come down, which would be in here. And inside that ball, there's a bazillion little more balls. It's unbelievable how complex this assembly is. Let me show you what happens at the end, where all of these things meet the ball that ripped out of there. All right, all of those little fibers coming down in those tendon bundles, they come into that ball, and then inside the ball they anchor into more balls, so it makes one big ball and a ton of little balls inside in that particular style. You see this? This is in Italy somewhere. I think it's in Rome, and that, I believe, is a natural stone wall that they just cut across. I really can't explain it too well. I see it's very small rocks at the bottom. In other words, they're getting smaller as they go down and bigger as they go in, and then they change to this blackish looking stuff. And that, I believe, that's the natural stone of this wall. And the reason I can say that with some measure of possibleness is because this is what rock quarries look like sometimes when they cut them right across, and these are all the tendons or muscle fibers. Now, there is some red blood in here. There's always going to be blood somewhere. Not much in tendon, and I think this is tendon, and there's some blood that's going to service it. So if we can go back to the other one and find the blood, and I think I might have seen where there might be some bloody spots, and there's not going to be much, but just like the other one, you saw one bloody spot basically, and that basically services the whole tendon. They have very, very little blood. You see it up here? There's no blood in here. It's working its way through, and it's going to service the rest of that tendon. But the tendon requires virtually no blood. All it is like a rubber band. So these are muscles. Now, that's not what they use down in Peru. They use tendon. And they use both different types of tendon. This one with the bumps on it is a ponderosis tendon. All right. The other tendon they used was the rope-like tendon, and let me show you that in anatomical first, and then I'll show you that I think they even tested and had a test wall to see which was best and how to deal with them, because these bumps are natural. Those aren't something they put in there extra. They just snapped off the little cables coming down to the balls. Alright, I think I'm going to close the case on the balls and the walls and the bumps on the balls and the walls. And this is it right here. And they did a nice job, and they had to do it when it was moist. And they had big machines. So there's a lot to start to think about here. This is not done, you know, nobody has any explanation for it other than this right here. And these things had something had scooped over, and they sunk in, and they knew where to position them so they could get the best tendon. And they cut the tendon, and they cut some fabulous looking tendon. Look at that. Just think about how that was done. They had some kind of a little scoopy thing. You had that little scoopy looking thing. And how they moved them from here down to there, I don't know. But they did move them down. And why they did it, I can't explain that. But they absolutely did it. They were being cut off of here and then being moved way down here to make these walls for some reason. And they are everywhere. This doesn't look like it's protecting anything. That's what gets me. Why are they here? Why would they do this? There has to be a reason, but I can't figure it out. I don't know if you can. Think of why you would do this. I'm racking my brain thinking, what the hell were they doing? I could see if it was fortifications, but it doesn't look like it's well fortified to me. It looks like they could come from any direction they want. They were just like rows of little squiggly looking lines of blocks. I try to make sense out of everything I see. This makes no sense to me. But they did do some fabulous work on the walls where they had, you know, like this. Look at that. That's just staggeringly fabulous. Look. And this has been here thousands of years. This had to be done when the Great Flood was just concluding. That would have been 3,500 years ago-ish. So even 100 years after that, if this was still moist by then, I don't know how long it took to dry out to where they wouldn't be able to work it. But there's going to be a point in time when it's not completely soft and it's not completely dry, and I believe that's when they would have done this. And fabulous they did, no question about that. All right, Merry Christmas to all, and I love you. And all we're trying to do is try to understand the truth. I hope you are. And if you have questions about this, please ask me. I don't have all the answers, but I don't even know some of the questions. People ask me questions. I say, wow, I never thought of that. And then I get a chance to think about it. Right now, people, they're not thinking about this. They have no idea about it. So until I make statements about it, they just never even give it a second thought. So I'm trying to give you a second thought. think about what you're seeing. Just like Myron Cook says, nobody even has an idea what they're seeing. But the problem is Myron doesn't either. He's right in the point that nobody knows, but he doesn't know either, and he's making up all these things and saying, you know, this is pretty well certain. No, it's not. The certainty is this is all biology. All right? And the people that make claims, I think, as scientists, they should engage with my claims. I am doing that to him, Myron Cook. I'm saying, well, you're saying this, it's just not true. Look at what I have to say. First of all, I don't say it that way. I was trying to be very nice to him. I said, I can see why I understand why you would say that. I see what you're thinking. It's a good line of thought, but in this particular case, it's just not correct. I'm not trying to be argumentative. Anybody that tries to make sense out of what they see, I respect them. But when you won't engage, when you're trying to understand, then you're not really trying to understand. Simple as that. I love you all. See you later.